Hi, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis. I am back, and it is time for the Saturday live stream. So, thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. I forgot after the last live stream 2 weeks ago until like the next day that I usually record podcasts not related to watches on Sundays, and one of my co-hosts needed to do a reschedule, and the plan was to reschedule it Saturday, and I figured it was easier for me to keep that usual record time, which is basically the same time that I would do this show on a Saturday. So anyway, I went ahead and canceled that. So thank you for bearing with me. No pre-recorded videos really since then. If you have ideas for topics, I am all ears because stuff is struggling. It is. I don't know if it's the tariffs or what, but it just seems like we are in watch doldrums. But that's not to say that watches are not coming out. So I actually will be covering four watches today, and I do like to have a unified theme. A lot of times when I do watches, even discussing new watches, they don't always lend themselves to that. But the unified theme today is going to be more affordable watches, as in, I don't think there's anything on this list today that is $3,000. Now, is that affordable? No, not really, but more affordable. Plus, we do have I think we do have one watch, maybe two, kind of depends how you think about it, that are under $1,000. So we're going to be operating kind of in that space today. But we'll go ahead and get started. Don't know if this will run a full hour. I actually have to move a pinball machine today to another house. So I have other things that I will be doing later on, which is why I am wearing the Casio G-Shock, because that watch can get beat up. And moving 350-pound items is a good opportunity to actually beat up stuff. So let me greet the chat. Good morning, Kevin. Welcome to the live stream. Glad you could make it. And Cool Lectables, which is a very cool username. Good morning to you as well. Okay. So let's start with gaming. Okay. Oh, Duncan. Thank you, Duncan. And thank you, Duncan, for being a 99-cent club member. I do appreciate that. Link in the video description down below. Likewise, in the video description are links to all of the articles that cover all of the watches that we are going to talk about today, starting with Call of Duty. Okay, so I've played Call of Duty, but it's been a while. I'm not a big Call of Duty person. I'm more of a Battlefield person, the dice shooter. If we're going to go into video games, but this is not a video game podcast. This is a wristwatch podcast. So, or I should say, video channel. So, all right, this article is over with Blog to Watch. What we are talking about is Hamilton. Hamilton, which is renowned for doing collaborations with movies, also does collaborations with other things, and video games is clearly a path they're wanting to go down. And if you're going to go down the first-person shooter path, Call of Duty probably is the smartest choice. It is far more popular than Battlefield, Halo, any of the others. It is the big multiplayer first-person shooter, without getting into the whole things like Fortnite and stuff. Anyway, this is the Hamilton Khaki Field Auto 38 millimeter Call of Duty edition. So in terms, obviously, as noted, 38 millimeters in diameter. It's got a lug-to-lug of 47 millimeters, a lug width of 20 millimeters. Thickness is just under 11 millimeters. Water resistance is 100 meters on this watch. It's driven by the caliber H10. That is a 3 hertz movement. Think of it basically as the Powermatic 80. 3 hertz, 80-hour power reserve. And this watch is priced US-wise at $975. So, I mean, on the surface of it, I think as a watch, it looks fine. Apparently, I guess, do they have it in the game? I probably should have read the article more closely. I was really just interested in the details. Thankfully, the front is not branded. Maybe I shouldn't say thankfully. It would depend if you're a Call of Duty fan. As a Battlefield fan, thankfully, the back is where the Call of Duty notation is. I don't think there's anything notation-wise about that on the front. I actually think that the dial looks pretty nice. I will say, I do find one piece somewhat interesting, since Call of Duty is a military-themed shooter, and I think they call the characters operators in that game. I don't know why the operators would wear something that's shiny. So, and I don't just mean like the effect of the black. The bezel is polished, which does not seem to be a very mil-spec style approach, in my personal opinion, because light would catch off of that. The brushed aspects make more sense. I understand them not completely blacking out the case with a PVD or a DLC coating, but polishing the bezel I found fairly odd. I do like the tip of red, and this is not the first time we've seen that. On the seconds hand to give it some distinction. I do like the texturing that we do see around the hour track to give it some visual character. But really, there is nothing about the dial that says anything Call of Duty oriented. It's a field watch. So of course it's got a military sort of vibe to it anyway. But I think it's a relatively handsome piece. I think it looks okay on the olive strap as well. But again, it's more like I don't want to demean it by calling it a parts bin watch, but I've seen all of these elements before, and I think this is just a different way Hamilton has chosen to glue them together. Uh, so given it's under $1,000, I suppose people who either really like this particular look, especially with what's going on with the dial, might go ahead and bite, because the Call of Duty aspects are hidden well enough that I don't think you would be put off by it. Doesn't scream Call of Duty in your face. So I don't think if you're not a Call of Duty fan that you would refuse this watch because it's quote unquote Call of Duty. However, I'm not really sure that it brings. It's not military enough, in my opinion, to really feel like a true military field watch because of those polished choices and such that they've made with it. You are paying more than some other Hamilton khaki fields that you can get. So you've got more affordable choices if you really just like this generalized look where you've got the 12 and then you've got the inner ring towards the center of the dial doing the second half of the 24-hour hour markings. So that particular look is something Hamilton has done for quite a while. So there's just not a whole lot that's really original here. So and again, if you're a Call of Duty fan, maybe this gets you to buy a watch. I don't know. It's near on $1,000, and gaming is different than some other hobbies like pinball, which is a very expensive hobby if you're a collector. It's not expensive to do video games, so I don't know what the crossover appeal is. I do think it makes sense for Hamilton to try and do a play like this, though. So I think it looks okay. I would never be in the market for it personally, but I had a field watch. It was similar in dial design to this. It was not a Hamilton. It was a Marathon, and I sold it because I just don't wear field watches enough. Like in this configuration, technically, I guess a Flieger. I could see myself someday getting a Flieger again, and I wore that more, but I sold my Flieger because I didn't wear it enough either. So anyway, that's just my own personal, neither here nor there, take on it. So I think it's okay. Interesting collaboration. I wonder if Hamilton's really considering doing other collaborations with other video games, and if so, would they do some that are maybe a little less? Well, I wanted to say a little less serious, but my understanding is that like the last Call of Duty, latest Call of Duty, I don't know, not the one that's about to come out, if it hasn't already come out. Again, I don't play Call of Duty much. Had like they do skins in the game, like they showed this picture with these operators, this operator wearing this, but they also have skins that are like Beavis and Butthead and stuff. Like I don't know. At some point, I last played Call of Duty 4. Like some point since Modern Warfare and whatever they do now, they decided that having cartoon characters being in a military shooter was okay. And maybe that's the Fortnite-ification of the game. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's fine, but definitely not for me. But what do you guys think? Collectible says, I wish the dial had something more unique. Yeah, other than that texturing around the what I'm going to call the base hour markers, because it's got the interior track to go for the second half of the 24-hour cycle. I do like that. I find textures like that do play with the light fairly well. And the red tip is nice. Not that necessarily the second hand is the most important hand on a watch, though, again, for a military purpose. For synchronizing, I could kind of see that argument. But no, there's really not a lot original that's going on here. It would have to be the case back that's original. And again, that's only appealing if you care about Call of Duty. Duncan says, that case with the polished bezel looks very similar to the Murph 38. Nice enough, but branding isn't for me. The difference between this and the Murph, why I favor this is I prefer this handset because the Murph uses cathedral hands, which I find off-putting. But this handset is actually, I really like this handset for field watches. And so I just favor this for that design element alone would give this for me a leg up over the Murph. Even though I think Interstellar is a far more interesting movie than the Call of Duty franchise is as a video game. But your mileage may vary. Tuna, thank you for tuning in and also for being a 99-cent club member. Very much just like a regular Hamilton khaki. Yeah, there's really not much different outside of the case back. Scotty, welcome, Scotty. I actually wouldn't buy because of the Call of Duty on the case back. I've never played the game. And again, there are so many, so let me say, I understand. I agree and I understand. Case backs aren't enough for me to care like what necessarily it's like when people ask about a used watch and it's got an engraving on it. Like, unless the engraving's offensive to you, do you, who care? Right. I wouldn't care enough. I understand some people would. That being said, this watch isn't really all that unique. As Collectibles pointed out, the dial doesn't really have a whole lot going on that you couldn't find elsewhere in the Hamilton catalog. So why not find something elsewhere in the Hamilton catalog? And you'd probably save a few bucks in the process. So anyway, Collectibles apparently is more familiar with Call of Duty than many of us, noting you can now be a twerking Nicki Minaj in Call of Duty. Okay, I did not know that we could full on be Nicki Minaj. I've not heard a Nicki Minaj song in quite a while now that I think about it. Okay, let's jump to something that Nicki Minaj probably doesn't own, and that is a Tudor watch. I don't know if she owns a Tudor or not. I'm just guessing she probably doesn't own a Tudor. And if she does, she probably doesn't own this new Tudor that came out a couple of weeks ago. Now, I'm in some watch discussion groups. This watch got trashed by so many people. Derivative, AI built, ugly, boring, too expensive. All of those things might very well be true. I actually thought it looked okay. Now, don't get me wrong. When I first saw it, it was a zoomed out image. An article, obviously, here in this instance is Hodinkee. And I could not make out that this was in fact a Moonphase. I thought it was a small seconds when it first shot on my screen and I was looking on my phone, so very small screen anyway. And so I immediately got Carl F. Bucherer Monero vibes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with. I'm going to say no one was familiar with Carl F. Bucherer, and that's why they're out of business. But Carl F. Bucherer had a watch that they would have sort of some of these sunburst style dials. It wasn't all of them. They'd have sunburst style dials. You'd have the date window at the 3, and they'd have a small seconds. And it's a relatively attractive watch, I think, for a very basic kind of vibe. But anyway, that's what I first thought. And then I saw, oh wait, no, it's actually a Moonphase. And then I was like, oh wait, and no, it's actually a Tudor, and so on and so forth. So let me go ahead and open with that. I actually like this watch. I'm not planning to buy one, but I do actually like it for a few reasons. But let me go ahead and give you some specifications. I'll let you see a different color while we're at it. But so obviously it's a Tudor. This is the 1926 Luna is what they're calling it because of the Moonphase. It's the Luna, 39 millimeters in diameter. The Tudor line actually ranges in sizes. So I have not looked to see if they have more than the 39 millimeter for this, not to my knowledge, but anyway, I guess we could check the bottom of this article to see if let's just check real quick because they might do more later on. It kind of depends on the movement, but I bet it's just 39 to start with. Yes, it is. Okay. All right. So, all right, back to the blue one. So you can, I have this, if I'm looking off to the sides, because I write the stats out over there, I've been trying to, I make AI do it. I'm very lazy now. Roughly 48 millimeter lug to lug distance, lug width of 21 millimeters, and a thickness of just over 10. It's 10.1 millimeters thick. The non-Luna 1926s are smaller than that. They're more like 9.5 millimeter, just for your reference. This is driven by Tudor's Caliber T607-9. This is actually a Sellita SW280-1 base movement. Probably eBosch. They probably do make some modification, but I've not seen confirmation of that yet. And that movement is 41 hours power reserve and beats at 4 hertz. And the watch is priced retail at $2,800 US. So, okay. Full disclosure for those that don't normally watch this channel, which is probably a number of you. I used to own a 1926. So I have a soft spot for the 1926. The only reason I sold my 1926 is because it was sort of a go anywhere, do anything style watch. And because of that, I have other watches that kind of met all of the needs that the Tudor did, so I let it go. But I liked the bracelet, I liked the dial. The regular Tudors they come in different colors, just like this comes in different colors, but they all have a waffle pattern, not the sunburst style that we see here. And the date at 3 o'clock. And otherwise, it's just like this, but without the Moonphase and the waffle pattern on the dial. Like the bracelet isn't the super adjustable style, but I thought it was a pretty nice bracelet. This has 100 meters water resistance, by the way, which is just like the regular Tudor 1926. Also, the 1926 is one of the few watches that Tudor still uses the third-party movement in. And in fact, I was impressed by Tudor choosing to keep using a third-party movement for this new model. Some people, and again, that's where some of the price debate, I'm sure, is coming in. It's like it's $2,800 and it's using essentially an SW280. And some people are going to say that's too much. You're basically just paying for the Tudor label. And that's all fair to debate. I will say Tudor has a reputation back when they used the ETA bases and now use the Sellita bases for the 1926s. I don't know which was in my watch. My watch was so old, I assume it was an ETA, but I never popped the case back and looked. They regulate them. Like, they don't get them COSC certified, but I believe they regulate them to, at least mine was regulated to COSC standard. And I read others that had said, yes, they just don't send them in for the testing, but they tend to get them regulated to that -4+6 second per day standard. So I say all of this to let you know that Tudor actually, they don't just Seiko dump the movement in. Okay. My experience has been pretty good with the Tudor movements in-house and eBosch. So I actually think this looks pretty good. No, is it look very original? Not really. Like the 2, 4, 8, 10, 12 format that Tudor likes to do with the 1926, I feel is a very 1926 aesthetic, but leaf hands, Moonphase at the 6. We got plenty of other options that are available from a variety of brands that will give you this style of thing. Do you like it in this particular package? It's kind of a yes or no. Again, it's a go anywhere, do anything style watch. Moonphase, I think, makes it look a little more dressy than the regular 1926, which already has a very kind of date just dressiness to it. Like, it's on a bracelet. You can get them on bracelets. I had it on a bracelet, but you can dress it up on a strap. 21 millimeter lug width is not the most friendly, but honestly, at this stage, getting odd style, like, I know some people still resist, but a lot of the watch strap brands now make them in the odd sizes. And honestly, if you're going to strap this, don't NATO it. Put it on leather. And getting a 21 millimeter leather strap is easy. So I would say there are workarounds. I'm not telling you to buy it. I actually like the black one with the gold. Actually, I like all three. I love Sunburst. And again, longtime viewers know Sunburst dials are one of my favorite dials. I like this gold Sunburst quite a bit with the applied markers and stuff. I think it's a pretty clean execution. And so I thought I think all of them looked really nice. Yeah, the blue one is really good. I like all of them. I like these. So anyway, I'm gonna be different than a lot of people online that have been very negative to the design and the look. I like the 1926. I think this is attractive. I like all three versions. Actually, the black one might be my least favorite. I think maybe the gold is my favorite, followed by, because I like champagne dials too. And this blue one, oh, that looks really clean to me. So okay, I get it. Some people hate it, and that's what's so fun about watches. We can all have different things and like different things. I would not buy this for $2,800. I would wait for this to hit Joma's shop and buy it gray. It's Tudor. They're going to make plenty of them. And I'm sure eventually you will find this readily available gray or secondhand. I assume also if the watch does decently well, as long as the movement doesn't limit it, that they will probably make this in other sizes. Again, 39 millimeters. 39 was the size of the Tudor 26 I did own. But they make the 1926, I believe, in a 41 as well as I think 36. And then there's a smaller size too, like a 28. I don't know. They have like 4 or 5 sizes on the baseline. So anyway, long story short, little expensive for what it is, in my opinion. But I think when you see gray pricing discounts within a year, it probably would be a reasonably priced watch at that point. That said, if you like this general look, but don't like the price, or don't like that it's a Tudor, or don't like something about the look, but like the idea of this Moonphase, there's plenty of other options you can kick around with really cool Moonphases that are going to give you a similar Moonphase look to this. This movement, again, is pretty common. So you definitely have options that are going to be much more competitive price-wise than this. But I'm not going to say that it's an unattractive watch, because I think it looks nice. Okay, that's my take on it. What do you guys think? The Movement Minch, welcome to the live stream. The Tudor Presage, that is a clever burn, and I tip my hat to you for it, should I have been wearing a hat, which I am not. Koji, thank you for tuning in and for being a 99-cent club member. People really hate this watch on social media. I rather like the blue dial. The blue dial, it's clean. It's a sunburst. It's a sunburst with a Moonphase. It's sun and the moon. It's the perfect thing. It's the perfect blend. It's like the perfect coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I assume that would be like the perfect coffee blend. I don't know, but I like it. Duncan says he agrees with Koji. The blue dial is rather nice. Scotty says, would a small seconds work on top of the Moonphase? Like visually, would it work on top of the Moonphase? I think so. Would the movement allow them to accomplish this? with more modification. I want to think I've seen moon phases with a small seconds. I've seen moon phases where they've got a hand above the moon phase. I don't know if they've always been small seconds or maybe a date, a pointer date. A small pointer date can be very attractive too. I mean, if I were to change anything about this watch, it wouldn't actually be installing a small seconds. It would be getting rid of the 3 o'clock date window. And I'd rather see this pulled off in one of two ways. One would be using the sub dial for the moon phase to accommodate the date display, probably pointer style. Another option pointer style would be just take a page straight out of Oris and do pointer date around the entire periphery, basically at the rehaut of the watch. I think that would look pretty clean if you pulled things in. These numerals are very large. It's very easy to read watch. So I think you can actually pull them in a little bit and you wouldn't really sacrifice much in the way of legibility. And it would give this some more visual flair that wouldn't feel quite so derivative. Like if this didn't have the 3 o'clock date window, I would not have immediately had CFB Monero vibes out of the watch. That's really what pushed me over the edge on it. Ben 10, welcome to live stream, says, hi, Dennis. Have you seen the new JLC Master, or is the MC the Master? I don't remember what MC stands for. Sorry, I usually try and translate the acronyms for everyone as I do it live, but I'm not quite sure what that one is. Calendar. I believe I have. Actually, I really like a lot of JLC has some really nice moon phases. JLC also, if you're into, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, if you're into annual calendars, but you don't like, there's not a lot of brands that do annual calendars. And some of the ones that do, like Patek, are obviously very expensive. Take a look at JLC. They actually do annual calendars. And again, retail, their price is ridiculous, but you look gray or you look used, you could save quite a bit of money. Duncan says that he wouldn't think so, but I don't remember what he wouldn't think so about. Tuna says, looking at this, Dennis, Raymond Weil does a more attractive moon phase than this. It also uses a sleeve of movement and is probably cheaper. I think Raymond Weil was one that came up in a number of the comment sections, though I don't know if it came up on this Hodinky article that I'm using for our references here today. But Raymond did point it out, and yeah, Raymond has a line of watches that has a very similar dial vibe to this just in general. Ben notes that the JLC is super sharp and is a beauty. Collectible says, I want to love it, but the Moonphase Sunburst non-moon part is too jarring. Is it only that way? So you see this, the gold one, the black is sunburst. It's burst from the center of the moon phase here where I've got the little hand symbol. If you're on your phone, it may be hard to make it out. I'm moving it a whole lot so you can see it flicker. But that actually does seem to be sunburst to me. Now the blue one with the white, I don't think so. I think they frosted it. So it seems to depend on the colorway. And the black one, it's hard to tell. It looks like it's sunburst to me as well. So I think the gold dial and black dial are sunbursting the moon phase cover, but the blue one is not. The blue one looks like it's blasted, like pebbled. So again, that would be, maybe you don't like but if the blue one's the color you like, and then that is the effect that you feel is in conflict with the sunburst, then obviously it is a deal breaker. Ben says the Tudor is okay, but I prefer a different brand for a dressy look. And I think a lot of people will come at that from Tudor as a sports watch brand, and it's totally fine. It'd be interesting, for example, to see if Panerai ever tried to do a dress watch and what the reaction would be. Ben says Tudor is for divers only. Oh, he's even more specific, not just sports watches, but a type of sports watch. Pelagos and Black Bay only. Ben says it looks nice, but you would not buy it. Yes, I would not. And Ben says, I'd rather have a Longines flagship. Longines is another brand that has been compared for offerings. And Longines has some very attractive watches. So definitely a brand, I would say, if you like some stuff about this, but you want something different, take a look at Longines as well as Raymond Weil to give yourself some options. Underachieving Watch Collector says, Tudor is just pandering to the so it's a very intellectual werewolf. No, pandering to the werewolf demographic. Hey, werewolves got to know when it's not okay to go out, right, guys? Right? I don't know. I assume so. What I also assume it's probably time for us to move on to watch number 3. So, okay, let's go to another watch that normally can be had at least gray market for under $1,000, but not this one, not yet at least. And this is an article over with Monochrome. Again, the link is in the video description. And this is the new Multifort TV. What's new about it? Well, it's in titanium. That's what's new about it. So let me go ahead and get you some pictures loaded up here. So here you go. Basically, other than being titanium, this is pretty much what you're familiar with. If you're familiar with I think I said Mido. I think Mido is the proper way to say it. The Mido Multifort TV Big Date. So this is the it's because it's kind of squarish. It's like 39 by 40 millimeters in diameter. It's a little over 39 millimeters, I believe, across. How I would use, kind of like not including crown. And then the length of it's a little taller than it is wide. So it's 40 millimeters long for the dial, basically, the case. The lug itself actually is pretty modest. It's 46.7 millimeters. This has a 22 millimeter lug width and a thickness of 11.5 millimeters. It does also, much like the Tudor that we talked about and the Hamilton Call of Duty we talked about, this also has 100 meters of water resistance. And the metal, as noted, is titanium, so the weight is going to be less than we're used to. This is driven by the caliber 80. So basically, again, think Powermatic 80 because that's what the caliber 80 is. So 3 hertz movement, 80 hours power reserve, 1,380 US dollars is the retail price of this watch. So gray is my favorite color. So the all grayed out look I really like. And of course, that tends to suit titanium anyway because of the gray color of the metal. I really like Mido's Multifort TV big dates because I think it's a really cool big date. There aren't a whole lot. There are other watches, obviously, but there aren't a whole lot of watches that flat out put the date window up at the 12. Yes, it is more common in the big date formats. I think it's a logical place to do it. I get surprised that so many watches don't do it and put everything down at the 6 to play it safe, when the 12 in theory should be a safe place to play as well. Obviously, it does look like a TV screen with the horizontal lining, but if you're familiar with the Mido TV big date line, like everything about this is going to look very, very familiar to you. It's just that it's now done in a titanium version. I don't know this one. Maybe gray will eventually get below $1,000. Like you can find a lot of the other Midos. They have other colors. Some of them kind of play up the TV aesthetic even more, with a more staticky kind of look to the dial. This doesn't do that. And actually, I think this is maybe better for not. I like those just fine. I've been contemplating buying a Mido Multifort TV big date. Be very careful, by the way, on the Mido. You can tell looking at the pictures, but they have a smaller one than this sort of 40 millimeter sizing. That's like a 35, which I think would probably wear better, but it's not a big date. And I think if you're going to get this, I would get a big date because that's like the cool feature about it. Otherwise, you're just getting another watch with a kind of cool shape that's yet another Powermatic 80, and you might as well just buy a Tissot. But I think this is very cool. I haven't handled the other Midos to tell you. I don't think they never came across to me like they were overly heavy. So I don't think if you really like light watches, titanium is a great option. I've had a couple of titanium watches. I still have one. I find them very comfortable to wear. I like the lightness of it. Some people feel like it feels less luxurious. So just, again, if you're not familiar with titanium, I'd say handle a watch, even if it's not this one, just to get a sense of it. But if you're someone where you kind of equate heft with quality, which is pretty normal for people in collecting watches, this might be off-putting to you. But otherwise, other than the weight and the metal difference, this is what we're familiar with Midos. But anyway, I just thought it was cool looking, and I like this watch, so I wanted to talk about it just for a little bit. Right. Trap Vision says, good morning. Good morning to you as well. Hope things are going great out where you are at. And Scotty had responded to Underachieving Watch Collector back when we were talking about these Tudor Moonphases, noting that the werewolf demographic is an emerging market. See, Tudor, they're always one step ahead. Actually, according to the Morgan Stanley report, they're like 0 steps ahead. They're like 12 steps behind because they're losing market share. But hey, if they've recognized that and now finally, remember, these things are often baking in the development cycle for a while. I don't know how long it takes for the average watch to be developed. Luxury watches, I often see reference that it's like around 3-year development cycle for a lot of watches. So when you see something come out, it's usually a trend that they thought of or wanted to start or were trying to predict 2 to 3 years earlier. Some watches with very complicated movements, sometimes the movement development takes a long time. I think I've seen some as long as 10 years, not counting things like successful development of the spring drive, which took decades. But that was because it was a very challenging technology and very cool. Speaking of very cool, I want to go ahead and jump to the last watch, another one that came out a couple of weeks ago, but I really wanted to talk about it. And since I didn't live stream then, I'm going to do it now. And that is Timex. I don't think I have owned a Timex since I was in middle school. Maybe I had that watch into high school. I don't remember. I got a Citizen in high school, and that was my watch up until I got my Explorer 2. But Timex is taking a page, guys, straight out, and this is not the first watch to do it. They're taking a page straight out of Seiko and arguably Casio at this point with their hammered straps on G-Shocks and stuff, and said, you know what? We cannot play in the affordable space alone anymore. The way to make money making watches is to sell expensive watches to fewer people, not affordable watches to lots of people. So here you go. Article is with Hodinkee, and this is the Timex Atelier Marine M1A. Now, this is it's an interesting watch, dive watch, obviously, but you'll see the Swiss-made branding down at the bottom, and there's a reason for that because they are using Swiss-made movements in these watches. So this is a 41 millimeter in diameter watch. It is a 20 millimeter lug width. The lug to lug, I believe, is approximately 47 millimeters. Wasn't easy to find information on that. Thickness, it's the thickest watch of the day at 13 millimeters, but this also is the only watch that we're covering today that has 200 meters of water resistance, not just 100 meters. But again, as you can see, it is a dive watch. This is actually powered by a movement brand I was not familiar with, Catena, with a C, not a K. Catena. It's the Catena SA100 automatic. That is a 4 hertz movement with only 36 hours of power reserve. And this watch on bracelet is $1,050 US. I do not remember the price for the strap. I think it's $975, but I bet Hodinkee said, no, I'm wrong. $950 on the rubber strap. So anyway, thoughts. There is an Atelier watch. I forget the name of it. It's actually still available on the Timex website, limited edition. That's the most expensive Timex I've ever seen. That's almost $2,000. And I think it uses an SW200 movement. So Timex has had a few watches where at the higher end, they've played and they put in Swiss movements and higher quality, to the construction of the watch and stuff. The thing that watch had why I'm bringing it up, excuse me, because I think it's a very cool watch. I'm just not willing to pay $2,000 for it, is the strap, the bracelet system. All right, Timex has some images on their website about it, but these are actually really easy. You see the quick release to remove the bracelet, but the links are actually really easy to move as well. Like these little end links, or I should say ends of the links, twist, and then you can pull the pin out and then you can just twist it back. And it's sort of like a smart system, kind of like it doesn't work the same way as Cartier's smart system works, but that's what it does. Relative basic finishing on this movement, but it does have some finishing. It actually looks like more finishing than on a Tudor movement, quite frankly. But this I did some brief looking at the Catena movement. I've heard some have described it as a derivative of basically the SW200. I've heard others say it's a Swiss derivative of the Chinese movement. Clearly, it's not straight up a derivative of the ETA 2824 SW200 style, because those are 38 hours of power reserve, and this is 36 hours of power reserve. And it's at 4 hertz, just like those other movements are. So I was a little surprised at that. I assume it's a more affordable movement for them, and that's why they went that route. I would be willing to try it. And I'm not a big dive watch fan. I like the look of it though. This looks like I think it's a fairly lacquered dial approach. Again, I'm trying to keep all this stuff straight in my head, but yeah, they do have Geneva striping and perlage. We were able to kind of make that out. But the Giorgio Galli, that's the series of the expensive ones that's the creative director for Timex. But I mean, I do think it has some nice higher end touches. Super Luminova, you can see here, as well as on the bezel, the dial, the hands, and the bezel. And again, dive watch, you would expect at least the pip to be loomed, but they've even got the striping around the pip loomed. So I actually think this executed in a pretty sporty way that I think is nice. And yes, black enamel. Okay, so polished black. I was like, what did they do to get that so shiny? I thought maybe it was a lacquer. No, it's a polished black enamel dial. So as a watch, I actually think this is a very attractive dive watch. And so $1,000, just over $1,000 on bracelet. I would want it on bracelet because I think the bracelet concept is pretty cool. I that movement, though, I don't know. I have no familiarity with it. And given the movement, and here's where brand name matters, right? We know people. I'm sure you all, well, maybe you don't. I know people. I have people who've written in who, like, they might like Seiko, but they will not buy. They have trouble buying Grand Seiko because the word Seiko is on it. Like there's that barrier, there's that hurdle. And even if you don't have that barrier, like I don't have that barrier, I with Grand Seiko, I do end up having that barrier when I see the price of a King Seiko, which is still under the Seiko. Like Grand Seiko is its own company now. I think that was a smart move. But when I see King Seiko and I see that movement, I see the price and all it says is King on it. I'm like, why do you have other watches in your lineup that don't say King, have the same movement, and they're so much cheaper? So if this was like $500, $600, I would be very tempted to buy it. And maybe this will hit gray markets and be that, because I don't believe this is limited. We'll check and see if the Hodinkee article noted it. Most of the other ones that have had the branding on have been, but I think this is actually meant to be base catalog. Yes, it's base catalog. So I'm not going to say it's an unfair price, but given its Timex and given I'm unfamiliar with the movement, I am not willing to pay $1,000 for it. However, I am intrigued by it. And if I could get it at a significant discount, I would probably buy it just to try it out. I like the Lollipop seconds hand. Like the markers and stuff are like straight up Black Bay for most of the, not the little triangle and stuff, but it's got its own, I like the handset. It's got its own unique kind of cool styling to the bezel. The crown guards look cool. The bracelet looks cool. That's what got my eye caught on the limited edition when I mentioned Gali watch that's like $2,000 is this bracelet system. I think is very keen. I would like to play with that. So anyway, I think it looks cool. I just don't like the price. But what do you guys think? I have no idea, so we will find out. Trap Vision says, I went to a luxury watch event last night, and Hublot showcased a new concrete-based timepiece in 4 colors. I believe it comes out next month. Hublot gets a lot of hate, and I don't know if that's just Nico has successfully, because he's such a big social media presence. But I actually think a number of Hublots, I think it's supposed to say Hublot and not Hublot, I think a lot of them actually look really nice. Like they got some really nice gold sporty watches. Like if you wanted something that wasn't a day date, but you wanted it to kind of have that like robustness to it, Hublot's got you covered. They play in a lot of materials. I think from my opinion, Hublot has 2 problems for me. One is the Invicta problem. A lot of their watches are too big for me. The other is because they typically don't in a lot of their watches go push the envelope on their movement, people are going to judge it against other watches that are in that movement price. And I do think they have a tendency to, whenever they use a different material, and they use a lot of different materials, they jack the price way up, even if the material isn't necessarily hard to work with, or we as people assume it's not hard to work with. Like when you hear concrete, you probably think, I've worked with Sackcrete before. I don't know if you have, I have. And like, it's, you get a garden hose, you get a bag, and blah, 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 blah. So when you just think about that, like putting in a basketball goal post, you're using Sackcrete to put a pole in, you're like, how hard could it be to pour some watch cases in with concrete? So it's like, and then you see it's a 5-figure watch. I think that's the Hublot issue. But I actually think some of their stuff looks pretty. I like a lot of their classic fusion looks. I think they actually is a pretty attractive looking watch, but I've never owned one. I think they get an unfair rep. They actually are more innovative than a lot of other companies. So I think they get trashed more than they probably deserve, but it's tough once you're the punchline of the internet to unring that bell. I think Hublot does far more interesting things than Panerai does, though. Speaking of other watches that are too big for me to wear, Duncan says, I really like the look of this Timex. Original case, no Mercedes or snowflake hands. The only thing is all the crevices in the case are going to collect dirt like crazy. I will tell you my secret to crevice watch case cleaning, because I have a Moser Pioneer. It has the same problem. Toothbrush. The toothbrush is your friend. Nylon brush bristles. They're soft. It doesn't muck with the DLC coating on the Moser. I'm sure it will do fine with stainless steel. If it's good enough for teeth, it's good enough for watches. I was wanting that to rhyme. It didn't rhyme, but I had to follow through because I already started talking. So sorry. It's not a good catchphrase, but it's a good option. Trap Vision says, Wrist Unround channel unboxed that Timex a few days ago. Oh, I have not watched any videos on this, so I will need to go and check that out because I would like to see this in some more natural light. But I think lacquer dials look really, really cool, and enamel dials as well. And I've never had a black enamel dial, so I think that would be really keen. Underachieving Watch Collector says he's a huge fan of loomed bezels. I actually, though I don't go after them per se, I really like them. A well-loomed watch, nothing feels as sporty as a well-loomed watch for me. Like I get some people like Dive Watch or chronograph or like Tool is going to do some Tool thing, but for me, like really bright loom is just super satisfying. One of my best loomed, my two best loom watches I ever had. Both were more affordable watches. One was my Stova Flieger Type B. That was probably my absolute best loomed watch ever. And I was able to get that under $1,000 as part of their Black Friday. I was going to say Black Friday. No, it was an Christmas Advent calendar sale. And then another one was a more, I don't know if micro brand's the right word. It's a more affordable brand, though, called Rotary out of the UK. And I had a Super 7, I think was what it's called. It was a dive watch, a Super 7 dive watch. Oh, that loom was, I actually gifted that watch to someone. That loom on that watch was so good. And the bezel was loomed out too. So it wasn't just the dial. It just was really, really good. Now, this is super luminova, so we know how bright it is. But, it'll be interesting to see like if the dial elements are like, if the bezel's matching the dial elements on the brightness scale here, like it looks like in this image. Images are very tricky with loom. Like even when I shoot video of watches that I own and I review them, my cameras and stuff will auto adjust the gain. So the loom always looks great. I give a loom shot so people can kind of see how it looks like presentation wise, what's loomed, but definitely take my own loom footage with a grain of salt, because if I film it in standard like 200 gain levels, it all looks weak. So I have to turn the gain up to some level, but it sometimes looks like, oh my gosh, this thing could light up the night sky. And it's like, no, it couldn't. Most of them though, like the luminovas and stuff, when they're charged, they're better than tritium, but tritium, doesn't fade. So until it decays, but not a lot of options anymore if you want tritium, unless you're really going to go. There are a few brands. Ball likes tritium. Marathon likes tritium. There are a few others, but those are the main options. So anyway, those are the watches I wanted to cover today. So I guess as a recap, we talked about the Call of Duty, the Hamilton Khaki Field Auto 38 millimeter Call of Duty watch, which is okay, but doesn't look particularly special compared to any other Call of Duty. We talked about the much maligned, unfairly maligned Tudor 1926 Luna watch in 39 millimeters. We talked about the titanium version of the new Mido Multifort TV Big Date, and we ended with this really interesting Timex Atelier Marine M1A. So that is it for this live stream. I will plan to be back next weekend to do a live stream as well. And I don't know what I will cover. If you want to suggest things, you can always leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I might look to see if there are more new watches that I didn't hit on, because I didn't want to do a lot of the expensive stuff that had recently come out. I thought this would be a fun theme to kind of run with today, with some really interesting watches, all of which I found attractive on some level, though none of which, the only one I would buy would be this time. I'm still looking at it. This Timex. I would buy this if I could get it at a lower rate. I don't think I would buy any of the others, though. If I had a smaller watch collection, the 1926 Luna would probably catch my eye, and then I'd probably end up with the Longines instead. But I do think it actually is a better looking watch than people have been claiming. But anyway, that's it for this live stream. Thanks everyone who was able to watch live. If you watched the recording, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you all on the next one. Take care, everybody.